My daughter visited me today, but it was not a pleasant experience for both of us. I don't think she left happy. Although she was kind and caring, too much time has passed, and the resentment is too deep for me to easily respond to her warmth. So why, despite her wonderful qualities, I haven't spoken to her in 5 years? It's all about what her mother did. I still remember the last words I said to Megan at her mother's funeral 5 years ago, after an incredibly emotional day. When I approached Megan at the burial site, I gathered all the bitterness that had accumulated in me and told her that she was just as non-existent to me as the woman we had just laid to rest. Turning to my son Stuart, I repeated the same words, pointing my finger in his face. It became clear from the shocked expressions on the faces of those present that my words also applied to them. The wide-open eyes of my family and friends will stay with me forever, as will the pain of that moment, which will stay with me forever. The agony of our shattered family, the loss of our mother and the death of our father weighed on us. On that fateful day, I made the difficult decision to walk away from all this, taking only my youngest daughter Faye with me. When we were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary with my wife Connie, I found out about the devastating affair. On that beautiful June day, the sun was shining brightly, and our loved ones gathered to celebrate this event. My father, wheelchair-bound, was sitting at the main table with Connie's parents and our 3 children. We received congratulations and gifts from friends, neighbors, and even the mayor of the city. As a special gift from the city council, we were given a sign declaring June 14th Connie and Mark Jenkins Day. The celebration took place under a large circus tent where more than 200 people gathered, laughing, singing, and dancing until late at night. When we renewed our vows, emotions were high. Connie and I were crying, and I didn't see anyone else shedding tears. Standing at the altar, I didn't notice our children standing next to us, our families holding hands in the front row, and even our golden retriever Bo, who was lying quietly at the preacher's feet. The only one I saw was Connie, the woman who broke my heart and whom I will love forever. It was just us, united by love and devotion. Our daughter Megan recently returned from her honeymoon, having been married a month before. Stuart graduated from the 2nd year of university, as did Faye. It was a joy that everyone returned home together. Although I don't say it out loud, it seems to me that I miss the noise and chaos that arose when children were around. Connie seemed to feel the same way. For a brief moment, our family felt like one again. But a few days after the anniversary celebration, while returning the party equipment to the rental office, I accidentally bumped into a brand new Lexus in the parking lot. I turned too sharply, as a result of which the Lexus's headlight was damaged. Interestingly, the policeman who drew up the accident report turned out to be Greg, a guy who grew up with Stuart and played on several of his sports teams. Greg was taller than me, and his uniform exuded an aura of authority that complemented his height. Watching him grow up, I was almost as proud of him as I was of my own children. Having finished with the paperwork, we lingered, having a casual conversation. As our conversation was coming to an end, one of Greg's remarks gave me an idea. "Well, Mr. Jenkins," he said, holding out his hand to shake, "I have to get back to the station." "I was so glad to see you again, and I apologize for not being able to attend your anniversary party. My parents told me it was great there." I had the opportunity to chat with a guy I remembered from our Little League days. He was always trying to steal second base. He couldn't do it then, but now he's a man I'm proud to call my friend. "And please remind Mrs. Jenkins to be careful on stop signs in the future," he said with a mischievous grin. "Next time I might not be so condescending." Greg's expression changed to one of embarrassment when he noticed my confusion. "Oops, I shouldn't have mentioned that." I sensed his awkwardness and tried to soften it, trying to figure out what he was getting at. "Don't worry, Greg. Connie doesn't always tell me when she gets a ticket. She thinks I'll get upset and revoke her driver's license. I don't really do that, but I let her believe it," I explained. "So, to have an advantage at dinner tonight, What exactly did you give her a fine for? I might want to tease her about it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought this up. I don't want anyone to get in trouble. Nothing terrible happened, I replied and smiled even wider. Don't worry, it's just a joke. Could you tell me what happened? A few weeks ago, it seems, on the 31st of last month, your wife drove out of the parking lot of the Holiday Inn Hotel on the 40th Highway, did not see the stop sign. Fortunately, she didn't cause any accidents or traffic problems, but she was driving pretty fast, and I had to stop her and remind her to slow down. Technically, she should have been fined for not stopping, but since there were no consequences, I gave her a warning. It was not a serious incident. You did the right thing, Greg. I'll talk to her about being careful and maybe tease her. Thanks for the warning. It's good to see you again. Sitting in my truck after unloading chairs and tables, I thought about the conversation with Greg. It was 2 weeks after Megan's wedding on the 31st, and I spent the weekend at my father's, helping him with housework that he could no longer do alone. That Saturday, I took him to one of the nursing homes to see if he would agree to change his place of residence. Although he wasn't thrilled with the idea, I realized I had to give it a try. I spent the whole Saturday with him and returned home around 9 o'clock on Sunday evening. There was nothing unusual, and Connie didn't say anything about the fine from Greg. She claimed to have spent a quiet day at home reading. I decided that Greg must have made a mistake because Connie would never lie to me. I dismissed the thought as something strange and inexplicable. A month after the anniversary celebration, my sister called and said that during her bi-weekly visit, she found our father lying on the kitchen floor. That day he fell and was unable to get back into his wheelchair on his own. She assured me that he was not hurt, but just confused. I immediately decided to stay with him on Saturday and discuss the possibility of moving to another place where he could receive more serious help. I hoped that this incident would finally push him to change, but he was known for his stubbornness. Since Stuart and Faye were home for the summer, I convinced them to come with me by playing the guilt card. I reminded them that they hadn't seen Grandpa for a long time and that he wouldn't be around forever. They agreed, and Connie expressed a desire to have a quiet day and finally finish her book. Stuart talked about the girl he had his eye on in philosophy class, and Faye shared her intention to prioritize college without being distracted by guys. We struck up a pleasant conversation about their different views, which naturally led to me telling the story again about how their mom and I met and fell in love. Dad was full of energy. The children hugged him and sat down to listen to his familiar stories. We shared a meal, chatted, and enjoyed the morning together. By noon, he dozed off in his chair, and we decided to quietly leave him alone. "Hey, you two, stay here and keep an eye on Grandpa," I ordered. "I'll be back soon. I need to deal with the old tree in the backyard before it falls on the house." Stuart and Faye stayed in the living room, watching TV and looking after Grandpa while he slept. Initially, I was going to go home to get a chainsaw, ropes, and other tools for demolishing trees, but instead, inexplicably, drove onto the 40th Highway. Walking down the hill, I suddenly noticed the entrance to the Holiday Inn on the opposite side of the road. On impulse, I turned into the motel parking lot. Looking around the neighborhood, I couldn't help but notice the stop sign that Connie had missed at the bottom of the hill. Unsurprisingly, no one noticed him easily, including me. As I was preparing to leave the parking lot, one special sight caught my attention. It was a car that seemed out of place, Connie's car. I stopped and looked again to confirm my suspicions. There were a lot of silver Toyota around, but only one had a Convam license plate. I decided to conduct further investigation and examined the interior of the car. Everything was in order, and the doors were securely locked. Puzzled by her unexpected appearance at the Holiday Inn, especially since she mentioned wanting to relax with a book, I felt it my duty to make sure she knew where her car was. At first, I called her on her home phone, but I only got an answering machine. But when I dialed her mobile number, she answered immediately. "Hello, dear, how are you?" She greeted me joyfully. It was strange, but I lied, which I rarely did. It's nothing special. I was just buying groceries for Dad at the grocery store and decided to call you. At first I tried to call you at home, but since you didn't answer the phone, I tried to call you on your mobile. Where are you? She replied, I'm at the mall. I finished reading my book and decided to do a little shopping. I hope you don't mind. That's how she lied to me. At least, that's what it seemed to me. Don't spend money on college for kids. What time will you be back? I asked. Probably around 6. Do you want me to cook dinner? I shook my head. No, I don't feel very well. Maybe I'll stay with Dad today and send the kids home. I'll keep you posted, I replied. Okay, just call me when you make a decision, she said sadly. Oh, did you go to the mall alone? I asked, hoping for frankness. Yes, I went alone. I arrived just a few minutes ago. I'm just curious. Well, I have to go. Have a good time and be careful with Greg when you leave, I said before ending the conversation. I hesitated, not knowing what would happen next. Suddenly, a muffled scream came from the vicinity of the hotel. I looked around, but saw nothing unusual, especially since there was no apparent reason for the scream. Sitting on the hood of Connie's Camry, I didn't let my guard down. Soon a police car pulled up, and Greg got out of it. Hello, Mr. Jenkins, have you called the emergency services? No, Greg, I didn't call. I should probably talk to the manager inside, Greg suggested. Hey, Greg, could you do me a favor? I asked. Of course, anyone, he replied. When you go inside, could you see if Mrs. Jenkins is there and who she's with? I'll wait here. Greg hesitated for a moment before saying, Okay, wait. Oh no, I'm sorry, Mr. Jenkins, I'll be back soon. I'll find out what's going on and come talk to you. He looked visibly agitated as he apologized. Greg returned to his cruiser and drove towards the entrance, leaving me anxiously waiting. But nothing happened for ages. Eventually, I heard the distant sound of a siren. It grew louder as it approached, and then stopped when it pulled up to the motel entrance. Paramedics came out and quickly loaded someone into an ambulance. Greg came up to me with a serious expression on his face. I'm very sorry, Mr. Jenkins, he said. There was an incident inside. Your wife was taken to the county hospital by ambulance. She was trying to run through the sliding glass door. Fortunately, she didn't crash, but she has severe bruises and a cut above her eye, and she is very upset. The man who was with her left as soon as the ambulance arrived. I have his data and his story about the situation. I can't disclose them right now, but you can come to the station tomorrow and submit a request for this data under the Freedom of Information Act. Again, I sincerely regret this. You and Mrs. Jenkins are very dear to me as family. He held out his hand to shake, but I didn't have time to react. Tears filled my eyes only after he left. Somehow, I found my way back to my father's house and stood in the driveway in a state of shock. What happened? The children asked me. I couldn't find the words to explain. Their concern grew as I struggled to hold back tears. My children rarely saw me so vulnerable, and when I finally broke down, Faye and Stuart couldn't contain their emotions. In a moment of candor, I told them that their mother was in the hospital, and they needed to go to her. Without further explanation, they quickly packed up and left. I handed the keys to Stuart, knowing I couldn't bring myself to join them. I'm going to spend the night here, I said. They looked at me with concern and drove away. After making sure Dad was okay, I collapsed onto the couch with my heart pounding. Tears were streaming down my face and I was looking at the floor. Dad sat down next to me and asked, "What's on your mind, Mark? What's bothering you?" I've never been able to open up to my father about personal matters. He was old-fashioned and always hid his feelings. In this regard, I took an example from him. When I faced difficulties as a child, he just said, "Act like a man and everything will be fine." I half expected to get the same advice as before, so I didn't say anything. But he took me by surprise. He started sharing with me a story about my mother and himself that he had never told me, my sister, or anyone else. After you were born, I got into a difficult situation at work. Your mom wanted an expensive red dress, but I didn't have the funds to buy it for her. In desperation, I resorted to stealing the tool and selling it. Unfortunately, I was caught. In the end, I managed to return the stolen items. I was fired and handed over to the police, but that was just the beginning. I was sentenced to 1 year of probation. The real test was that your mother's anger and frustration came crashing down on me like a ton of bricks. It strained our marriage to the core, and for what seemed like an eternity, she was distant and icy towards me. But one day she surprised me by mentioning a job nearby where she worked. She urged me to have an interview the next morning. Hugging me, she met my gaze and uttered these 3 strong words: "I forgive you." My son, she showed me mercy and forgave me after I almost ruined our marriage. She dropped her ego and allowed me to return to her heart. From then on, I tried to make everything I did make her proud of me, right up to the day she left us. Her love made me the best of people. Although she was hurt at first, she turned out to be more compassionate and understanding than me. We were able to overcome the pain and move forward. Mark, it looks like you're in a situation similar to the one I went through. Maybe you need forgiveness, or maybe it's hard for you to forgive someone like your mom did. Maybe the situation is so complicated that forgiveness seems impossible. Anyway, I believe that in the end, you will make the right decision. I pray that everything works out for you in the best possible way. Maybe I don't say this often, but I'm incredibly proud of what you've become, and I love you very much. The ringing of the phone disturbed my sleep, both at home and on my mobile, but I decided not to answer. I spent time with my dad over the weekend and talked to Megan and Stuart on the phone. I avoided talking to Connie when she got in touch because I wasn't prepared for her to see or hear me in the state I was in. When Monday morning came, I called work and told them about family problems that had forced me to take a few days off. I didn't know all the details of what happened, but it seems my children knew more than me. One thing I knew for sure: I couldn't find out anything else. "Hi, Mark," she said, and her voice instantly pulled me out of my thoughts and caused a rush of emotions. Without turning around, I greeted Connie quietly when she came up to me and put a chair in front of me. She said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Mark," looking at his hands. Her arms, once beautiful and strong, now showed signs of injury. One had a bruise, the other had a large wound. Looking up at her face, I noticed bandages fixing her broken nose and a large gauze bandage over one eye hiding the stitches. The other eye was surrounded by a dark bruise that appeared black and orange, giving her the appearance, as Faye would say, of a train wreck. Once so beautiful, now she seemed damaged beyond recognition. I wondered if my perception of her appearance was distorted by my own mental pain, or if she really looked so beaten up. "Mark, I came here to apologize. I understand that one word of 'I'm sorry' may not be enough to fix what has broken down between us, but that's all I have. Megan brought me here because I'm still too weak to drive on my own. I needed to see you, talk to you, and make you understand why I did what I did to you, to our relationship. Mark, I made a mistake, and I take full responsibility for it. It's not your fault. You don't deserve the pain I've caused you. The pain I caused you is a heavy burden on my heart, perhaps even heavier because I caused it myself. The pain I feel is the result of my own actions, and it has the potential to damage something that is incredibly important to me. I'm not sure I want to hear your point of view. What I already know causes me a strong internal shock. I can't take it anymore. Please just stop talking." "But Mark, if you find the strength in your heart to forgive me, maybe we can save our relationship. I can't accept losing you. I love you, and I need you to understand why I made the choice I did. It all started—" "No, damn it. I said I don't want to hear it. But Mark, please listen to me. This is the only way we can move on and rebuild our family. Please, Mark, just listen to me." "I said no!" I got up from my seat and left, leaving her in tears and with bruises on her face. "Dad, please just listen to her," Megan begged, following me into the kitchen. She wants to explain everything and apologize so that we can forget about it. I turned to face my eldest daughter, anger boiling in me as I uttered the words that sealed my fate. Megan, if you believe that by listening to her side, we can mend our relationship, then you're just as wrong as she is. If she needs to speak out, she can write a letter and send it to me. I can't bear to hear her justify that she ruined our 25-year marriage and broke me in the process. I can't be with her right now. I can't forgive her now. I got in the car and drove away, not knowing where I was going or if I would come back. I hardly cried during the trip. Most of the tears were shed on my father's terrace. All I needed was to escape and clear my mind. The next day, when I returned to my father, Faye greeted me warmly at the door. Her smile and hugs instantly lifted my spirits. At that moment, her smile was like a beacon of hope in the midst of the darkness surrounding me. She made me believe that happiness is still possible, that someday I will be able to find joy again. But it is still unclear whether my decision will bring happiness to others. My father was no less pleased to see me. When we sat down to dinner, I shared my decision with Dad and Faye. "I've decided to move in with you for a while," I announced. "I need some space from everything, and you could use some help with cooking and cleaning. Dad, you could use some cooking skills besides scrambled eggs and bacon. Faye, could you help me pick up some things from home? I can't meet my mom right now and I need things for work. Inform everyone that I will temporarily stay here until I find a more permanent solution. Just tell me that Mom and I are on a break. It's simple. No details. I'll come back tonight and bring you everything you need, Dad. Give me a list. Is there anything I should tell my mom? Tell her I'm going to live here and ask her not to contact me. When I'm ready, I'll contact her myself." I handed her the list and then spent the evening discussing our new life situation with my father. Judging by his expression, he was glad to see me back, but he was worried about the current situation. He didn't mention Connie or recent events. We even did something we hadn't done for a long time, a game of checkers. Naturally, he emerged victorious. When Faye returned with our things, I was stunned by how full her car was. "I brought my things too," she said firmly. "I'll be staying in the guest bedroom until classes start." With a determined look, she helped unload our things. In the evening, I asked her what happened. Faye looked upset when she started talking. "Can you imagine what my sister said?" she exclaimed. "She thinks you're being childish and that you should go home and make peace with your mom. And Stuart was no better. He argued that infidelity is inevitable in a relationship and is not a serious problem. He went so far as to advise me to forgive my mother and look for a girlfriend on the side. Can you believe their audacity?" Unbelievable, Faye. "Dad, I don't want to hear this. It's not your fault, but you're being made out to be a villain sitting in your grandfather's house. It was Mom who made a mistake, and she doesn't deserve to be forgiven. That's why I'm here. They think you should apologize and make amends, but I can't accept that idea. After receiving your things, I packed up and loaded my things into the car." Faye was beside herself with anger. I understood that if she decided something, then she would not be persuaded. I remained silent, letting her anger subside. Over the next few months, I tried to behave as normally as possible. I went to work, helped with the housework, and even showed Faye how to cook delicious vegetable lasagna. From time to time, Megan or Stuart would call and ask if I was going to come back. In my mind, I imagined Connie eavesdropping, waiting impatiently for my answer. I told them that I was staying with my father and did not want to discuss Connie or communicate with her. Despite their attempts to bring up the subject, I just stopped talking. One day, Stuart showed up at the door and insisted that he had important news to share with me. We sat on the terrace so he could tell us. "Dad, you have to come home," he said. "It's been 2 months now, and Mom's condition has worsened. I have to go back to college soon, and I can't leave Megan alone to take care of her. We all worry about Mom's well-being when none of us are around. She cries constantly, hardly sleeps and hardly eats, which has led to significant weight loss. Even some of her friends who visited her are as worried as we are. All she does is stay at home and feel sorry for herself. Despite our attempts to get her to eat or go to the store, she breaks down in tears again. Dad, I think you've punished her enough. It's time to put aside the grudge and return home. Mom is remorseful and you're suffering too. It's time to move on and reunite with your family. When I looked at my son, these thoughts haunted me. This is the same guy I mentored in baseball and football, and under whose guidance he received the Eagle Scout badge in the Boy Scouts. But there have been changes with him. He no longer looks like the son who once made me feel proud of his achievements and decisions. His values have changed, and he now believes that his mother's actions are permissible, which sets a disturbing precedent for his own behavior. I have always stressed the importance of fulfilling the promises I made to my children, and tried to instill in them strong moral principles both in words and in deeds. I couldn't believe that Stuart was acting like a madman. Stuart, you're an adult now. Let's talk like men. Get out of my house. How dare you accuse me of immaturity? I didn't mess up anything. If you support your mother's actions, then you have really changed for the worse. Go and take care of her and leave me alone. I'll be here until I'm ready to leave. Now go away before I make you leave. I got up and went into the house. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of a car driving away. At the end of August, Faye returned to college. There was no news from Megan and Stuart. I figured Stuart was back at college too, and Megan was busy dividing her time between her new husband and Connie. They didn't contact me. Now we were just with Dad. In the middle of September, a letter arrived from Connie. I told Megan to write it down if she wanted to clear her conscience, but now that I had the letter in my hands, I couldn't bring myself to read it. The pain was still too much for me. I pushed these thoughts away and focused on moving on with my life. Faye called regularly to find out how my father and I were doing, and mentioned that she also talked to Megan and Stuart, who supported their own mother. Faye mentioned that she would come to my birthday party at the end of October, and expressed the hope that by then I would have made a decision about our future. I knew that indecision was not good for anyone, so I promised her that we would talk as soon as I made a choice. On October 30th, I celebrated my 50th birthday, a significant event. Faye arrived this morning with the good news. She wanted to invite Dad and me to an Italian dinner to celebrate the occasion. She playfully joked with me, saying that she would finally try real lasagna, poking fun at my lack of culinary skills. Her light-hearted joke was the first one that made me smile in recent months. After a delicious lunch, we returned home late, and I helped my father get into bed, and then joined Faye in the living room. Handing her a beer, we sat down at the table to have a heart-to-heart talk. "Well, Dad, have you decided what you're going to do?" Faye got straight to the point, always preferring directness. Sighing heavily, I began to explain. I realized that I don't have all the answers, especially when it comes to understanding her actions. Avoiding her and refusing to communicate won't solve anything. I finally read the letter she wrote, but I'm skeptical about the veracity of its contents. Despite the possibility that this may be true, it all looks too far-fetched. Besides, given the length of the situation, I doubt reconciliation is possible. Nevertheless, it is important for me to talk to her, listen to her point of view, and express my own feelings. If I can't trust her, divorce may be the only acceptable option. It seems that I was just as unhappy without her as she was without me, as you claim. I am ready for progress, whatever it means to us. I plan to call her tomorrow. Faye's cell phone suddenly rang, interrupting me in mid-sentence. Although I didn't finish what I wanted to say, I let her take the call. "This is Megan," she informed me, glancing at the phone screen, and then went outside to answer the call. A few minutes later, she returned, visibly unsteady and pale. Her eyes were wide with fear. She searched the room and then collapsed into my arms, bursting into uncontrollable sobs. I held her close, comforting her while she cried on my shoulder, and waited for her to come to her senses. After a few minutes, she pulled away, wiped her tears, and looked at me with a solemn expression on her face. "Dad, Mom is dead," she whispered. "Megan found her lifeless body in the bathroom last night. It looks like she had a strong dose of sleeping pills. Megan didn't give any more details." Most of all, I was interested in the question of my participation in Connie's decision to take these pills. I didn't force her to swallow them physically, but my silence aggravated her emotional distress. I was consumed by my own pain and wanted her to understand the depth of my suffering. Despite the love I felt for her, her act hurt me to the core. I never wanted her dead. I just wanted her to understand my pain. Maybe she did, but it was too hard for her. Now I will never have confidence. Her cheating ruined our marriage, and my actions may have contributed to her breaking down. We were both wrong. May the Lord grant us both forgiveness. Connie's funeral is tomorrow, and I'll have one last chance to say goodbye to her. I needed to stay strong, stand up to our loved ones, and say goodbye to her without giving in to tears. When I turned around, the front door slammed. I was sitting in an armchair on the lawn when Megan came up to me from the back door. "Megan, are you okay?" I whispered, worried. She shook her head. We sat in silence, absorbing the sounds of the night. Megan looked at me and said softly, "You know, none of this would have happened if you had just come home and forgiven her. She made a mistake. I'm sure you've made mistakes too, which she forgave you for. She couldn't live without you. Your pride has ruined her." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was speechless. My own daughter accused me of being responsible for my wife's death. No matter how much I tried to explain, deep down, I knew it wasn't my fault. I didn't have an affair. I haven't cheated on our friends and family for months. I didn't take sleeping pills to numb the guilt. "Dad, today is going to be a difficult day. After the funeral, everyone will return to our house, and there will be a lot of people here. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to attend if you don't want to. Stuart and Mom's friends will take care of everything, so you don't have to worry." Megan didn't seem to want to see me at the funeral meeting. I couldn't figure out why. Perhaps I was too overwhelmed with emotions and stress to see clearly what was happening. But one thing I knew for sure, I didn't want to argue with my daughter on the eve of her mother's funeral. Without saying a word, I got up from my seat, entered the house, and went to the family room where I was sleeping. I quickly gathered up all my bedding and put it in the laundry basket, and then changed into a suit and tie. When I went downstairs, I saw that the children were already dressed and waiting for me in the living room. My father looked exhausted, and I realized that the upcoming funeral was weighing on all of us. Faye came over and straightened my tie, as her mother had done countless times in the past. I kissed her on the forehead, took her hand, and went out to the waiting limousine. Faye held my hand tightly all the way and was silent with her head bowed. When we arrived at the funeral home, we were greeted in the lobby by a crowd of friends. When we went into the examination room, all eyes were on me. But instead of sympathy from our friends and neighbors, I noticed an expression of contempt and disdain on their faces. When I greeted a few people with a nod, they immediately turned their attention to talking to others. My boss from work reached out and expressed his condolences, and the others around him were with the same unfriendly expressions. He was the only one who spoke to me. The children received sympathetic glances from those I had already passed by. I felt puzzled. Funerals were an unfamiliar topic for me, because the only funerals I came across were my mother's funeral, and they weren't like this. Faye escorted me to the coffin where we knelt down to say goodbye. The soft sounds of the organ filled the room, but the whispers of the crowd still reached our ears. As I prayed quietly, I could hear their harsh murmurs. "The unforgiving jerk. He left her. It happened because of him. The hypocrite. Son of a witch, she's dead because of you." Faye squeezed my hand tightly, sharing the pain of the hurtful words we both heard. The funeral was emotional. Instead of the usual funeral music, there was a beautiful hymn that Connie adored. To my surprise, Connie's friend didn't recognize me or Faye after talking to Megan and Stuart. Several friends shared their memories, and in conclusion, Megan made a plea for mercy and forgiveness, drawing parallels with Jesus' forgiveness of those who crucified him. The atmosphere at the grave was gloomy and calm as we listened to the last words of the preacher. When the service came to an end, Each of us put a red rose on Connie's coffin. I went first, followed by Faye, Megan, and Stuart. My father's friend also drove him past the coffin before we left. Feeling overwhelmed with emotions, I couldn't hold back any longer and ran into Megan and Stuart. I angrily stated that because of their actions spreading lies and exposing me in a negative light, I feel betrayed. I expressed my feelings in front of everyone before I left with Faye. Ordering the limo driver to leave quickly, I left Megan and Stuart standing on the side of the road. Only a small group of people came to the meeting after saying goodbye, including my boss, his wife, and 2 neighbors. Megan and Stuart supported each other at Megan's house. Faye later revealed that many people thought I was responsible for Connie's death, which made them see me as responsible. Faye went back to college, leaving me alone. Her visits were a bright spot in my lonely days. Megan was busy with her in-laws, and Stuart was often missing from college or somewhere else on vacation. To cope with my grief, I immersed myself in work. I often woke up in the middle of the night, tormented by memories of my late wife Connie and her affair with John Jablonski, a former neighbor who even attended our 25th anniversary celebration. Over time, the pain subsided a little. Megan decided to name her children Connie and Chance, but I haven't seen them yet. Stuart married his college sweetheart, but unfortunately followed in his mother's footsteps. He cheated on her and eventually divorced. He has since moved to California, and after the funeral I lost touch with him. Faye is the only one who keeps me informed about their lives. They are still my children. My boss at work has been a great source of support for me, giving me the space I need and encouraging my growth at the same time. Thanks to his leadership, I was promoted to senior manager in Florida. I moved to Orlando, sold my old house, and started my life all over again. To help my dog Bo move without any problems, I bought him a companion. Our new life in the new house is going well. Unfortunately, I've lost touch with most of my friends from Maryland. Only a few of them still get in touch, but none of them invite me to chat. After my father passed away a year after Connie, only Faye and I were left in the house. Faye graduated from college with the best results and found a great job in Florida. She's living with me now, and I'm not rushing her to leave. It's been a difficult 5 years, during which I've lost almost everything except Faye. In order not to feel like a lonely old man with only my dogs for company, I returned to writing, a hobby that I had long neglected. If I used to write only business reports, I recently started writing short stories again, and even managed to sell a few. In one weekend, the idea of the story turned into a manuscript describing a difficult period of my life. Despite the emotional difficulties associated with returning to painful memories, the writing process turned out to be healing. When I finished working on the draft, I decided to keep it a secret and hid it in my den. In an effort to improve my writing skills, I enrolled in creative writing courses at the nearest community college. Although most of my classmates were younger and less experienced, I became close to 2 other older students, finding camaraderie in our shared passion for writing stories. Maurice talked about how his family was involved in the Civil War, and Alicia, a widowed mother of 5 children, moved to Florida to start her life anew and began exploring new interests by attending college classes. During the conversation, Alicia and I found a lot in common. It's been almost 30 years since my last date, and I've been focusing on Alicia, taking mental notes while she shares her thoughts and experiences. Realizing that she was dominating the conversation, she asked about my biography and why I ended up in Central Florida alone, taking writing classes at a community college. I told my story briefly, hoping to turn attention to her, but she kept asking questions. She was insistent in her curiosity, which prompted me to invite her to dinner at my place next Saturday. I told her that if she wanted to know more about me, she should come. In response, she smiled warmly and beautifully and agreed, saying, "Yes, with pleasure." "I have to say that dinner was just amazing," she commented as we stepped out onto the patio, breathing in the cool night breeze under the swaying palm trees. "Not many men can make such a delicious vegetable lasagna like this. What other surprises do you have up your sleeve?" I run the Folks Industries distribution center on the east side. My daughter Faye lives with me, unfortunately. My wife passed away a little more than 5 years ago. I have 2 more children, and you have already met my favorite golden retrievers, Bo and Luke. That's all, actually. I have to admit that I can be a bit boring at times. Nothing interesting happens in my life. You promised to share your story if I came to dinner, Alicia teased. So, spit it out. I'm waiting for all the juicy details. Instead of answering, I got up and went into the house. When I returned, I had a box with my novel in my hands, which described the most significant events of my life. I've been writing for several years now. I sold a couple of stories to a local literary magazine. My computer is full of stories, some of which were inspired by my own experiences, and others taken from my imagination. Before I signed up for creative writing courses, I wrote a paper that I didn't know what to do with. Inside this box lies a dark narrative about my family and about me. Writing this book has served as a form of therapy for me, helping me cope with the pain of losing my wife and breaking up my family. I'm keeping this to myself for now, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Although I believe that this can only serve as an improvised bolt for the door on cloudy nights, the point of view of the writer I admire is very important to me. Admiration flashed in her eyes, and she replied, "It would be an honor for me to read your work. What is it called?" I replied, "Weather Friends." "Wow, it's so heavy," she exclaimed, taking the heavy book from my hands. "There are only 987 pages in it. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Please be honest, even if it's rude. Someone else's point of view is important to me. I would not like to share this book with my daughter because of possible painful memories." Mark, I'd love to read your story and give you my honest opinion. I must warn you that I am very suspicious and tend to express my opinion openly. I'll start reading it tomorrow. During the conversation, we touched on topics such as writing classes, the vibrant nightlife in Florida for people our age, and also shared thoughts about our favorite movies. The evening was delightful, and the weather in Florida was surprisingly pleasant for once. When I walked her to the car, she surprised me with a sweet kiss on the cheek, which made me feel young and giddy. As I was putting things away after our dinner, I couldn't help but think about how we spent time together. Alicia was absent from the next class, and after our memorable dinner, I did not receive any messages from her. I began to wonder if my request to give her a review of my book had given the impression that I was crazy and better avoided. I was thinking about contacting her, but I didn't want to seem too pushy. 2 weeks later, she called me while I was away and left a message on my answering machine. "Hi Mark, this is Alicia. I'd like you to come over for dinner on Friday night. My son is coming to stay with me for a few days, and I think it's time for you to get to know each other. I may have a surprise for you, so grab a couple of bottles of that delicious white wine we enjoyed last time and come by 7. Please call me when you have the opportunity. Goodbye." For our Friday meeting, I chose a casual but stylish outfit and took 2 bottles of Balthazar Ress Riesling cabinet hat with me. I read in a local Orlando magazine that this is one of the best white wines of the year, and since I don't really know much about wines, I decided to take the author's word for it. The wine went well with the lasagna we had for dinner, and I hoped it would complement what Alicia had prepared. "Hello, Mark. Welcome. Come in." Alicia greeted me warmly, giving me a tour of her house. When we arrived on the terrace, I noticed a cozy table set for 3 with candles and wine glasses. A man appeared from behind 2 orange trees and joined us at the dinner table. "Mark, meet my son Barry," she said. Barry held out his hand and greeted me with a smile. "It's very nice to meet you, Mark Jenkins. My mother spoke very highly of you. She's not easy to impress, so you must be something special." "It's nice to meet you too, Barry. I must admit that the stories that Alicia could share with you are most likely the product of our creative writing classes. There's nothing particularly exciting about me." Alicia laughed and headed to the table, grabbing bottles of wine to cool them while we settled in. As soon as she joined us, She flashed a radiant smile again and took my hand. "Mark, I have to admit that I lured you here under false pretenses. We'll have lunch when the wine is ready, but first I have to share some interesting news with you. This may come as a surprise to you, hopefully a pleasant one." I was filled with curiosity, and at the same time I was very nervous. "Mark, my son is here today to meet you. I risked doing something that you might not have approved of if I had asked in advance. But I went for it, and now it's too late to cancel anything. If you get upset, so be it. That's what happened. I read your book in just 2 days, and it completely captivated me." "I was completely captivated by your story, Mark. She is incredibly inspiring and deeply touching. I couldn't stop reading as soon as I got to the middle. Tears came to my eyes when I read about the difficulties you faced, especially in the chapter where you moved in with your father after your wife's revelation. The part dedicated to your children also brought me to tears. Your book is really wonderful, one of the best I've ever come across. She touched me so much that I decided to share her with my son. Despite his usual reluctance to read books by unknown authors without prompting, he willingly took up it on my recommendation. He was just as passionate about the book as I was, and even offered to help edit it so that we could get on with publishing it. Isn't that amazing?" I couldn't speak or move. I looked at her and answered her smile. I probably looked stupid, but I couldn't do it. Barry noticed this and smiled, repeating his mother's words. "Mom was right, Mr. Jenkins. This is really the best debut novel I've come across, and I've come across many during my time at Prentice Press in New York. I keep track of applications from new authors, and every month we receive about 100 books. After reviewing them myself, I pass them on to 2 other reviewers. If we agree that your book is great, we will be happy to help edit it and prepare it for publication. We want to publish your book. Congratulations on creating such an outstanding work, which, in our opinion, will be successful." I was shocked and speechless by this news. Smiling warmly at me, Alicia kissed me gently on the forehead and then went to the kitchen to cook dinner. When we sat down to eat, our conversation turned to my book, at times evoking strong emotions. We enjoyed mahi and peach cobbler while Barry explained the publishing process, promotion strategies, and potential royalties. I realized that I would not get rich on this. After Barry went to bed, my head was spinning. Alicia and I were sitting outside, finishing our wine and indulging in fantasies about becoming famous writers like Stephen King or J.K. Rowling. It was a pleasant stay, although deep down I knew it was just a fantasy. When the clock struck midnight, I decided to leave. Alicia walked me to my car, leaving a passionate kiss that rekindled the spark in me. It's been a long time since I've felt so alive. This feeling reminded me of the past with Connie. Despite the bittersweet memories, the excitement of the trip home brought back a sense of joy in my heart. Over the next 3 months, I collaborated with the editor of the Apprentice Press publishing house, finalizing my manuscript. Our interaction included one face-to-face meeting, as well as numerous emails and phone calls. First, we transferred my draft from MS Word to a more complex editing program. After completing the manuscript, I immediately received a hard copy, which I worked hard on over the weekend. As my editor predicted, I was constantly finding small improvements to bring every detail to perfection. While continuing to work at Folks Industries during the day, I devoted my nights to writing a novel. Faye, who always supported me, took care of me like a mother hen, making sure that I stayed healthy and kept up to date with the latest developments. Alicia came to me on weekends to help me with my work. When my book was published on the 1st of May, I was contractually obligated to hold many autograph sessions all over the country, including in my hometown of Ellicott City, Maryland. Just the thought of this stop made me worried. I took 3 weeks off from work to go on a book tour, and although being an author may seem glamorous, the experience was actually quite exhausting. After spending 28 days traveling by plane and train to different cities, staying in short hotels and visiting non-stop book exhibitions where I chatted with fans, I found myself exhausted by constant travel. But the unexpected presence of Alicia at 2 autograph sessions brought me a new pleasure. She played a shy groupie, and I played a charming author. She stayed with me. The last stop of the tour was in my hometown of Ellicott City. I asked for it to be a grand finale, and I was grateful to the organizers for arranging it. I was well acquainted with the bookstore, located just a few miles from my childhood home. The event was scheduled from noon to 4. When I arrived at the place, I noticed that a crowd had already gathered there, including several familiar faces, such as my former boss and his wife. They were sitting at a table with about 50 copies of my book on it, and all of them were displayed under a large poster with my image. When I saw them, I immediately hugged them, and we exchanged contact information, planning to meet again for dinner. Their presence gave me great joy, making me forget for a moment about the growing queue of people formed behind them. After signing their books and entering into a short conversation, I greeted the other participants with a smile and even posed for a few photos. Surprisingly, the event turned out to be more enjoyable than I expected. About half an hour after the start of the event, an old friend who had distanced himself from me after Connie's funeral came up to me with my book in his hands. I signed it and gave him a friendly handshake. Then he quietly apologized, admitting that he didn't understand until he read my book. This scenario was repeated throughout the day with other old friends who also expressed regret for past mistakes, leaving me feeling grateful and awkward. Most of all, I remember the moment when Lenore Jablonski came up to me with a worried look. She apologized for our past difficulties and told us that she divorced John, who caused her a lot of pain. She also mentioned that she is now engaged to another man. In addition, she admitted that she had spread a rumor that I was seeking revenge, and that was why John had moved abroad. Not knowing how to react, I eventually wrote a message of peace and recognition in her book, after which we briefly hugged until she left. Even after the official end of the event, people were still queuing. Out of nowhere, my gaze fell on Megan, who was standing by the bookshelves and silently watching what was happening. She stayed where she was and was gone by the time I finished reading the next book. Last in line was Faye, who hugged me warmly, and we chatted on the way back to my hotel, not to the Holiday Inn. During the car ride, the conversation turned to Alicia. Faye expressed her sympathy for Alicia and expressed hope that I feel the same way. When I confessed my love for Alicia, Faye burst into tears on my shoulder. At that moment, a police car with flashing lights pulled up to the house. Sergeant Greg got out of it and came over to us. We met like long-lost friends. We haven't seen each other for a long time, so I handed him a copy of my book and a note expressing how much he means to me. Greg had to leave on business, and Faye and I went to dinner. The trip home turned out to be surprisingly less stressful than I thought. The next unexpected meeting took place with Megan on my doorstep. Alicia and I were just discussing the success of my book, which took 3rd place on the New York Times bestseller list. But all thoughts of the book disappeared when I saw my daughter. "Hi, Dad. How are you?" Megan asked with a hint of shyness in her voice. "Hi, Megan. I'm fine. What brings you here?" I asked. "I was just in the neighborhood and decided to stop by to see how you were doing," Megan replied. I couldn't help but notice that this area is 900 miles from her house, which makes it very unusual. At that moment, I felt Alicia's hand on my shoulder and turned to see her standing next to me. "Would you like to introduce me, Mark?" she said with a note of authority in her voice. "Alicia, this is my daughter Megan." Alicia walked past me and hugged Megan warmly. "Come in. I've heard so much about you." Upon entering the living room, both women completely ignored me. They sat down at the table and chatted animatedly for an hour, leaving me to clean the kitchen and do other household chores. While I passed by the living room several times while cleaning, they were talking and laughing enthusiastically. Alicia admired Megan's children in the photos she showed her. Eventually, Alicia invited me to join them in the living room. Taking this as an order, I walked over and sat down next to her, where she took my hand. I was forced to stay rather than motivated by affection. Megan's gaze fell on our hands, which were intertwined. The silence that followed seemed awkward. Finally, Alicia broke the tension. Since none of you are talking, I will tell you, she said decisively. Mark, Megan is here because she has something to tell you. I knew you wouldn't invite her, so I took the liberty. This may be your home, but if you want me to stay here as a guest, you will sit quietly and listen to her. My gaze darted between Megan and Alicia. Surrounded by them, I decided to refrain from escalating the situation and, leaning back in my chair, got ready. Dad, I came here with sincere concern for your well-being. It was sincere. I also wanted to apologize to you. Dad, I was wrong about a lot of things, especially about you. I used to blame you for everything that happened to Mom, Stuart, and me. At that time, I saw only part of the big picture. It was only when I read your book that I began to better understand what was happening from your point of view. After reading your words and realizing the extent of the pain you have endured, I felt a deep sense of stupidity. Despite the fact that I am already an adult woman with my family, I realized that I still consider myself your innocent little girl. I've always held my mother in high regard, even after the hurtful things she did to you. You always seemed strong and resilient, but now I see that it was a facade that hid your emotions. Mom managed to break through that shield and cause more damage than I could have imagined. I believed that if you could find the strength to forgive her and return home, then everything would be fine. But I didn't realize that your strength manifested itself in your decision to abandon a relationship that lasted more than 25 years in order to protect us from her mistakes. While Megan was sobbing, I was overcome with remorse, and Alicia was waiting for my answer. I decided to think a little before giving an answer. I asked Megan, "What about Stuart? What does Stuart think of me? Does he know about your visit?" Megan replied, "Stuart is not very good. Mom's act caused him the most pain. After Lori found out about his infidelity and filed for divorce, he moved to California and began to lead a reckless lifestyle. He rapidly moved from one relationship to another, even entered into an affair with a married woman and faced the consequences from her husband, which eventually forced him to leave the city. Despite his behavior, Stuart remains indifferent to the seriousness of the betrayal. He doesn't know I'm here, and I don't care what he thinks." Megan's sudden outburst left me little time to decide what to do next, so I decided to wait again. "Megan, what are your plans? Will you stay in the city? Do you have a place to stay?" "I'm going to stay at Faye's for a couple of days to see her new apartment, and then I'm going home. I will think about everything you said today and inform you of my decision. This is the best I can offer at the moment." "Dad, I didn't even expect this. Thank you. I'm going to Faye's. Alicia, it was nice to finally meet you. I hope to see you again soon. Take care of my father for me." Megan left as quickly as she came. I had a lot to think about, and I found comfort in the fact that Alicia was there, not allowing me to act on impulse. After a Caribbean cruise donated by Prentice Press in honor of the success of our book, Alicia and I went to Maryland. This trip was very important because it gave me the opportunity to meet my two young grandchildren, 2 and 4 years old, and show Alicia my hometown. Alicia, who has already become a grandmother, provided us with invaluable support during the trip, especially in difficult moments. The most memorable moment of the trip was that during a family dinner at Megan's, I announced my engagement, which was decided during the cruise. Faye is already busy planning the wedding, and we are looking forward to sharing our news with Alicia's children. Looking back, Alicia and I assess how our lives developed, moving from youthful aspirations to a reality filled with love and new beginnings. After 25 years of living together with Connie, I am looking forward to starting an exciting new chapter in my life with Alicia, which can serve as an impetus for writing a new book.